Hi there, everyone. Happy Monday. It's 4 o'clock in New York. Donald Trump is finding out that it is not easy to get yourself out of a war you started with no end game in sight in the first place. In the face of failed peace talks and a fragile ceasefire in place, Donald Trump is choosing to escalate tensions and worsen the global oil crisis with a blockade of the Strait of Hormuz. Hours after the marathon peace talks with Tehran fell apart over the weekend, Donald Trump announced that starting this morning, the U.S. Navy will block the entire strait. U.S. Central Command later had to step back from Donald Trump's threat to do that, stating that U.S. forces would merely block ships going to and from Iranian ports. Still, by any measure, it is a dangerous escalation of the war, both militarily and economically. On that, the Wall Street Journal reports this, quote, "The move opens a volatile new phase in the 6-week conflict, shifting from punishing strikes on military targets to an open-ended campaign to police the strait. The prospect of such a blockade could set off a high-stakes battle that tests which side has the higher threshold for pain, Tehran or global markets. That economic pain is already being felt, with the price of oil surging past $100 a barrel as soon as the blockade was announced. But here's how Donald Trump tried to spin it and downplay the major economic impact of his war in an interview on Fox News yesterday.
The stock market has not gone down very much at all, gone down a little bit, much less than I thought. And frankly, the gas hasn't gone up as much as I thought. But regardless, even if it did, we have to stop this group of people from having, and again, it was worse because Khomeini was a total, radical, I'll be nice, maniac. He was a maniac. And you can't let them have a nuclear weapon.
Right.
So I just have the greatest economy ever. Everything's going along. And I say, I'm sorry. I tell my economic advisors, I say, I'm sorry, fellas. We're in great shape. We have to go and take a little journey down to Iran.
13 people have lost their lives in that little journey down to Iran. When Bartiromo pressed him as to whether or not he expects gas prices to come back down, here's what Donald Trump admitted.
So do you believe the price of oil and gas will be lower before the midterm elections?
I hope so. I mean, I think so. It could be. It could be or the same or maybe a little bit higher, but it should be around the same. I think this won't be that much longer. They're wiped out, man. They're wiped out.
So, according to Trump, the prices will be lower, the same, or higher by the midterms. Now, beyond the blockade, Donald Trump is also considering further attacks on Iran. That's despite the fact that we're in the middle of that 2-week ceasefire. Wall Street Journal reports this, quote, Trump and his advisors are looking at resuming limited military strikes in Iran as a way to break a stalemate in peace talks. That's according to officials and people familiar with the situation. Trump could also resume a full-fledged bombing campaign, though officials said that was less likely. Now, none of Donald Trump's actions appear to be rooted in any strategy, least of all a strategy to bring an end to the conflict or the war. It's a war that is only growing more and more unpopular with the American public by the day. A brand new poll from CBS News shows that just 36% of the country approves of Trump's handling of the war with Iran, 64% disapprove, and only 34% of Americans think that Trump has clearly explained what his goals in Iran even are. Donald Trump, struggling to find an off-ramp for his increasingly unpopular war with Iran, is where we start today. New York Times diplomatic correspondent Michael Crowley.
The unfolding crisis around the Strait of Hormuz reveals a deeper problem than just a failed round of diplomacy. It exposes the absence of a coherent strategy. Donald Trump appears to be navigating a conflict that was escalated quickly, but without a clearly defined endgame. And now, with tensions rising and global markets reacting, the consequences are becoming harder to contain. What stands out is not simply the decision to impose a blockade, but the inconsistency surrounding it. Announcing a sweeping move and then walking it back within hours suggests a reactive approach rather than a calculated one. In high-stakes geopolitics, ambiguity can be a tool, but confusion rarely is. When military commanders must reinterpret presidential intent in real time, it raises serious concerns about coordination and clarity at the highest levels. The economic dimension only amplifies the stakes. Oil prices surging past $100 a barrel is not just a market fluctuation, it's a signal of global anxiety. Energy markets thrive on predictability, and what they are seeing now is anything but. Attempting to downplay these impacts, while politically convenient, risks underestimating how deeply interconnected the global economy has become. A disruption in one narrow waterway can ripple across continents within hours. Equally troubling is the narrative being presented to the public. Framing a complex and dangerous conflict as a short journey minimizes the gravity of decisions that carry real human and economic costs. Public support for military action depends heavily on trust and transparency, and right now, both appear to be eroding. Poll numbers reflecting declining approval are not just political data points, they are indicators of growing skepticism. Diplomatically, the situation seems equally fragile. Sending relatively inexperienced negotiators into rushed, high-pressure talks was unlikely to yield breakthroughs. Meaningful agreements, especially on issues like nuclear programs and strategic waterways, require time, expertise, and patience, none of which were fully present. Ultimately, this moment feels less like a controlled escalation and more like a drift toward deeper conflict. Without a clear objective or exit strategy, each new move risks compounding the last. And in a region as volatile as this, uncertainty is not just dangerous, it's combustible.